And we're back one more. No, it's not. You wish, but we're back again for laying it down with Big D. I, of course, am your host, Big D, and I'm joined by very special North American counter striker here, and a very well-rounded one at that, Mr. Why Not? Tony, do you care to introduce yourself fully, or what kind of
I
title do you
mean,
want to go by?
you did a pretty good job. I'd say I'm pretty well rounded. Playing history, coaching history, casting, the whole nine. Been around the block, but right now I'm a professional bed layer, getting comfortable. So that's what I am today.
One of few people to officially lay it down with Big D. So we like that a lot. We're gonna have to be careful. Where the chill vibes might go out of this world and get too chill, put some people to sleep. So we'll
Yeah,
work.
see, I brought too many blankets
Yeah,
and stuff. This
you
is like for people who watch. This is what I sleep with normally. I sleep with a comforter, two extra blankets, and like 5 pillows. It's like a castle.
is it cold where you are, or you must be near Boston?
No. No, I'm in New Jersey right now, and it's not cold. I love being warm. What
Mm.
can I say? I like being warm.
Okay, yeah. I'm the same way when I sleep. I like to have the heater running while I'm sleeping. I like to be bundled up in a
Right.
bunch of, because I like to wake up and have it be like a sauna and wander around in the nude once I'm awake and feel comfortable.
Yeah, I live with my parents. I can't
Well,
unfortunately do
yeah,
that, but if I could, I would.
Big D lives alone, so the cat and the
Yeah.
dog have to deal with it. But yeah, well, anyway, enough about Big D's morning nude routines. Let's get into some Counter Strike, shall we?
Yeah, of course.
Well,
It's the only thing.
we just got back from Let's go back a little bit for the people here, Tony. What's your what's
Okay.
what's your earliest memory? What's your earliest memory of like esports, and is there a moment before you got into Counter Strike, or was Counter Strike the first thing? And what was that kind of earliest memory of getting into competitive esports?
So, it started with me watching Counter-Strike. I didn't play to start. I didn't really have the facilities, so I watched like the majors because that's all I knew existed at the time. I just watched the majors. And I started with MLG Columbus, 2016, and that was where, famously, Liquid made their crazy little run to the top four. Simple. He was a maniac on Liquid. Coldzera hits his jumping double. They choked the semifinal both maps, and that was where I finally got that was where like the anxiety started to really in a good way show itself, like the competitive anxiety and not really knowing what's going to happen next and the rounds being all crazy and chaotic, and then from there on it was kind of me just forcing myself to play the game even if my computer couldn't really handle it. I still did, and then eventually things got better and better. My equipment got better and better. I played with a laptop up until this year, so 23 years old, and I finally have a working rig.
You played with a laptop up until this year.
You correct.
That okay? I've talked to a lot of people that played with a laptop to begin Counter Strike with, but not.
People get shocked. It was a gaming laptop, but
Okay, it was
yeah.
it was at least a gaming laptop. You're not like on a Chromebook by any means.
No, 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 no. I had like 150 frames in CS2 when it first came out, and I had like 200 in Go, and I just plugged my monitor in, through the HDMI. So it was basically a functioning computer. But
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's and getting started with man, you're giving me PTSD flashbacks with that Coldzera jumping shot. I was there, not there in Columbus, but I was watching it live
watching,
with everybody else when it happened and watched it
yeah,
all
yeah.
slide away in just spectacular fashion. And yeah, so how long did you play Counter Strike before you start? Because what and then what was your first? How long did you play Counter Strike before your first like competitive experience? Because you played
Ooh.
competitive for a bit before you started coaching Fisher, right?
Yeah, so I think I started playing in 2018 competitively. So that was probably, I guess, 2 years of just casual matchmaking and like face it, an ESEA and whatnot. And then I subbed for my friend's open team. I thought that was pretty fun. So then I looked for a team of my own, and then I got offered a sixth man spot, which was basically like I'm gonna fill like every game for a different player. Um, and then eventually that team I took over, and we just made a solidified 5, and that was where I started to actually like team build and like play with people who I knew I'd be playing with for a full season. Never got kicked. Never in my entire career have I ever been removed from a roster, whether it be as a coach or a player. So I take pride in that.
As you should.
I mutually parted ways with a team that I was playing terrible for, but not kicked. Not kicked.
That's
And then what would that have been? 2018, yeah. And then I guess seriously competing, quote unquote, with Fisher when they brought me on as. It was weird, actually. Maybe we can get into that a little later. Yeah, I don't know what you got. I don't know what you got in store for us, so I don't know.
you act like a Big D's got a list of questions. No, this is a casual conversation between two passionate counter strikers. So
Oh, okay.
lay it down for the people. Let us know that what yeah, I'm discovering all about you with the people here. I guess a good interviewer should like I know good interviewers do some like research and have a good list of questions, and there's things that I think about when I'm talking to the person that I'm going to be talking to.
Right.
Like obviously your story with Fisher and your casting and playing and land experience, all of the things that like I think about those things when I'm talking to somebody, but I don't have a list of questions. So dive deep. What give us the juicy deets. What's weird at Fisher College? And while you're
So I
telling us,
got
I'm gonna
brought
make sure we're
on.
recording.
That's probably a good idea.
We
Yeah.
are.
So I got brought on initially as a commentator for their school, part of their broadcast team, and we didn't have Counter Strike, but we were looking to get into it, and I wasn't really asked to do anything regarding Counter Strike. That was never in my initial, I guess, job description, so to speak. And then eventually it just got to a point where I was like, why do we not have a CS team? Like we should have a CS team to be one of the most competitive teams in esports, or collegiate rather. I think that Counter Strike is a game that we have to be, in the forefront of, in my opinion. Seeing as the market was a little weak at that time as far as like competition would go. Davenport just went under. Um, and it came to recruitment time, and the people who were doing the recruiting for the Counter Strike team at Fisher. Uh, you're probably familiar with Deprive. If not, he's a kind of self-made, commentator, speaker for both collegiate and for esports in some capacities in general. And he recruited, but the recruitment process was just going a little slow. So then I started to help out a little bit. And by the time that we had anything even remotely close to a team, the school semester had already started, and it was myself playing, Frizzy, who I brought from at the time Wanted Goons. I was working with them, and Tatum, who took a little bit of convincing from both me and Deprive because he thought we would have a full team by that point, but it didn't actually pull through. So we played with a 32-year-old who was just at the school who played Counter Strike, and a Valorant player who had some experience playing Counter Strike, but not in really a team setting, as far as I was aware. It was a 19-year-old, I believe, at the time, named Jeff or Juxo. So that's the start. That's the beginning
That's the
of
beginning.
Fisher College Counter
So
Strike.
Tatum has been there forever.
3 years now? No, more like 2.5, 2 years.
And you just recently graduated, meaning you're not officially a part of the esports program there anymore, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
So what has that transition been like? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about with what was happening at Fisher, but like what has the transition been like from graduating and having that like solid esports foundation in your life of being able to go to the land center, practice, do all this stuff with like a set group of guys, to having to kind of get back to navigating your own way like you were when you first started?
Yeah. It's not been as fun. I'll tell you that.
Sure.
It's not been as fun. Um, it's been only 2 months now since I've left Boston, less. and it's been 5 months since I've graduated. So, I always had contact with the people there. We were always hanging out, and I was able to at least, have some kind of level of communication with them. But yeah, now that I'm gone, it gets a little bit saddening sometimes because they're people that I talk to still regularly, right? Like we have like our Discord channels and Snapchats and things of that nature. But it's like they have their own lives that they're very much so intertwined with in person because they go to school together. So me not being there anymore kind of makes it more difficult to really just find myself engaged with them consistently, and that's a little sad. I don't get to fly to lands anymore on the school's dime
Yeah.
and hang out with my buddies and play a video game that we love. Like I don't get to do that anymore. So yeah, it's been, I would say, a readjustment period to what I was before Fisher. I was, paving my own path kind of thing, like you were saying, trying to make my way throughout the scene, trying to carve my little hole in commentary the where I can sit comfortably. And as that moves on and that grows, I feel like the time that I spent um, was really well spent making good connections and learning a lot about the industry and the scene and hopefully transitions into a job, whether it be as a commentator or maybe in some other facet of sports or esports and traditional sports. So yeah, it's been less fun, but not like impossible. Not like I see like a mountain to climb or anything. But it has its times of up and down.
Well, I certainly did not mean to like bring up a sore subject because yeah, I'm sure it has been a.
No, no.
I'm sure it's been. I you are somebody though that like something that another question that I wanted to ask you, and I know we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but
Yeah, but go for it.
that's laying it down, baby. I was going to ask you because you are. When I was listening to you at when I was listening to you at Vegas in the grand finals when that was, I was just like, man, okay, there, like you sound like a professional caster, and you've gotten yourself to the point of having a deep knowledge of the game, wide vocabulary, great voice control, all of these things. At what point did you feel like you had made it? Like, have you always felt like you were that way as a caster, or was at what point as a caster did you feel things just kind of like click into place for you?
It's interesting. That is a very interesting question. So it started in 2020-ish, my whole casting thing in general, and I've become so much more comfortably and confidently knowledgeable about the game from then to now, as opposed to kind of trying to be knowledgeable, if that makes any sense. I hadn't played it really a high level at that time at all against better players. I hadn't spoken to very many people with a greater mind for the game. Um, and the people that I had spoken to, in hindsight, now probably are more well revered for their minds for the game. But 5 years ago, I was 18. I was still a kid. I am now technically. I feel like one now. So back then, I was trying to fake it until you make it kind of thing. And just over time, it wasn't faking it anymore, I guess. It was just actually building talent and skills by throwing myself in that environment. So learning the game, that was happening progressively on the side, not really with anything in conjunction with casting. Um, and what I started to acknowledge more and more, I think, was things that you were mentioning, but so again, kind of subconsciously, like volume control, not making every moment a hype moment, but making the moments still hype, if that makes any sense. Um, and then working on my research for teams and players, for talking points, for storylines, and these kinds of things are what I've always been more passionate about. The latter few. So, I guess to answer your question in a roundabout way, it never clicked. It just slowly but surely progressed in a natural direction where I just kept doing it and getting better at it day by day, not even realizing it. So I've gotten to the point where I'm at now, and it comes like that most of the time. But sometimes, depending on the circumstances, depending on like the environment around me, I guess, I'll notice that wow, like today my energy isn't really good, or wow, today like I just I'm not really like flowing with my partner well, or I'm repeating phrases consistently. And that's the new bridge that I have to cross in commentary. I have to find ways to continuously find myself making, new connections and new ways of delivering information. And yeah, that gets to be a little bit challenging sometimes, but I guess that's kind of the fun in it. Because on a broadcast, if I hear myself say something twice, then I have to like take a minute to like think and be like, why am I doing it? How can I stop doing it? What can I say differently? And yeah, it's still new every day. So
Yeah, commentary is definitely a weird journey. I can attest to that. Like after doing it several years now, it's like you said, it's really about getting the reps in. There's never a mo- a moment. I don't know. Like I know there are videos out there of like how to get better at being a shoutcaster and commentary and esports and stuff, but like it really is something that you just kind of have to constantly think about while you're doing it, think about outside of it, and then get the reps in. So yeah, and I also wonder because you talk about doing like research into making sure you get the right information. I'm
sure.
sure you've done plenty of research as a coach and then plenty of research as a caster. Do those things differ much from each other? And like, how do you approach those things?
Hmm. Um, it's interesting because I feel like my research as a coach is actually maybe that's a stylistic thing, I guess. Yeah, so my research as a coach is very much so inwardly reflecting. I don't really do research on other teams. All my research comes in what I think we could be doing better and what we can bring to our game. And as far as, like counter stratting or, like understanding players' positions or tendencies and things like that, it never really came to a point where I needed to do that a lot. I think the only time I ever found myself doing that because the team wanted it and because it was also necessary was back in 2021, I want to say, maybe two. 2022, I'll say probably comfortably. Unjustified was in advanced, and they were doing a little bit of a project roster where they had to rebuild, and they had me on as coach by request of one of their players at the time, Doppelers, if you're familiar with who that
Yeah,
is by chance. And yeah, that was the only time I think we really needed both inward and outward research to be done. Whereas when it comes to commentary, my research comes down to who played with who at which time periods, if they've ever had teams together before, the situation that they have ongoing in their roster in regards to most recent moves, what are their, in my opinion, biggest glaring issues, what are some of their biggest strengths. You can kind of weave statistics into that you pull. And then beyond that, obviously, just knowing a team's map pool and casting them consistently and or watching them consistently, you build over time a knowledge of what they like to do, and that kind of, like you said, falls into line with coaching research because then I'm kind of learning these players and teams' tendencies almost accidentally, as opposed to on purpose. When you want to win a game, that's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on delivering a product, right? So when that's in my arsenal, so to speak, it's not using it as an expose of the other team. Instead, it's me using it as a way of showing you this team and telling you about this team and telling you why it's interesting what they're doing, why it might work, why it might not work. Whereas otherwise it's only looking at the negative side for a majority of the time. It's only looking at ways to tear down a game plan or a strategy or things of that nature.
that's interesting.
That was a really good question. That was a really good question you asked.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're doing our best, by gum. We're trying. Well, okay. I want to ask too. Um, more specifics about coaching. And you
Sure.
talked a lot about it just now with how you approach coaching, but coaching is one of these things that in esports it doesn't seem like it has a very clearly defined role, but it is something that we as spectators, players, commentators, whatever, we all can observe that a coach on many different rosters plays a massive role. What is
Sure.
what is coaching to you? And I know you said more so that you focus on like internal stuff than external stuff, but what is your general approach to coaching when you come into a new roster? Like if that's an option for you in the future outside of commentary.
Yeah, I mean, not to close any doors, I guess, or like have people like dissuaded from what I'm about to say, but generally speaking, I think that I've kind of learned that not only my best style, but also my most enjoyable style is in a team where I can rely on players' minds themselves. And Fisher opened that like
Sorry, my dog is
world to
really
me.
excited
And
about what you're talking about here.
good, good.
Garcon, shut up. Sorry for
Um,
interrupting.
oh, no, no, you're fine. I was gonna say that like, it's become a little bit of a meme in recent history about like Taz coaches, right? And I'm not I am and no one else is in any position to say anything on a good authority as to what he actually delivers to the team outside of those funny little bits and clips you get from matches, right? Where, he just says something funny in the timeout, like let's beat these guys, and then they're like, haha, that's what Taz says, but he he's a legend of the game. He's won a major. He's in-game led for years upon years upon years to good success before and after. So I don't think that it's. I think it's very disingenuous to say that he's just like outright like either not smart or not like delivering in the practice, because they wouldn't have kept him for as long as they have. I know there are rumors that he's on the way out, but even still, he's been there for long enough of a time to where I can say that and feel pretty good about it,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
and that's and that's kind of where I lie. I like vibes. I like energy. I like talking. I like bringing up the mental. I like that kind of aspect of the game more so than having to feel like I need to build out our strat book. I need to be calling rounds. I need to be calling timeouts and telling my team what's going wrong. Obviously, these things come with the job, but that shouldn't be the primary operative function of me as a coach if I'm going to be giving you your best performance, right? I think that I come very much so more in clutch with trying to build good team chemistry, cohesion, trying to pull players together, pull players up from maybe mental slumps, whether it be in a game or just in a general period of time. Opening up dialogue for players that otherwise they wouldn't be having comfortably with one another or an organization for that matter, um, or tournament organizer, whatever the case may be. And yeah, I think that if and like if anybody's looking for something like that, that's really what you would get. You would get a good amount of energy and vibes, a vibe coach, plus the actual depth of knowledge and awareness to be able to do anything else that you would expect or ask of a coach. But that again, not being like the primary function. Like I again, just to reiterate, don't want to be joining teams and being asked to build strat books. I did that actually in my off season recently, for I at least helped get the gears turning for a main team. But time is valuable, and unfortunately, I don't have infinite amounts of time to where I can dedicate to projects that won't really see me getting much out of it in the long run. But they paid me for my efforts when it came to the beginning couple of or about a week and a half or so. And then, that's appreciative and that's huge. So those kinds of things are big. But again, it's not something that I can just on a Saturday morning wake up and be like, well, can't wait to just spend the next 6 hours unpaid to do, strat book work and server theory. Like,
Doesn't
it's not feasible,
no,
unfortunately.
it,
I've got debts to pay,
yeah,
man.
I mean, and I'm happy to hear what you say because that's that if I've always thought if I was to like coach Counter Strike, that's what my approach would be. Is like I would want to find five players that know how to play the game, and they don't need somebody to tell them how to play it or micromanage it or build the strat book or whatever. Like obviously a coach
Right.
is going to do more than saying, "Hey, nice job, buddy," or whatever, but um yeah, I think just giving the hierarchy to a team and the structure and making sure that nothing dips too low with the mental status. Because man, Counter Strike is, I swear to God, 99% mental. Sometimes like it's just on some days a good team shows up and is feeling good, and sometimes they show up and they're feeling like shit, and it's the vibes are off. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really
I will Sorry, just really quickly,
Lay it
just so I
on
don't
me.
forget. I will also go on record as to say that I was not happy with how I had finished my coaching tenure with Fisher. I didn't deliver in places that I know that I should have or could have all the way through in the last couple of months or so. And they know that, and I know that because things were getting hard for me. Financially, I had to pick myself up a little bit with bills and things like that. But I just want to say that, like, on record, I can still be better than I was when people thought I was doing a good job. I could be so much better than that. So, just wanted to put that on the floor and and also apologize to my teammates if they ever do listen to this.
They're
But we've already
watching it.
spoken about it on the
They're
side. So
watching it. The entire
yeah, they got to be.
the entire Counter-Strike community is watching this. I like to imagine. All no, not yet. Someday maybe. Right now on my iPad, I'm gonna check outside to see if you're frozen. Your camera looks like it might have frozen here for just a moment. Let's see here real fast.
Sure, sure. My phone keeps buzzing right next to me, man. I made a crazy little tweet. Yeah.
Now we're moving. All right, everybody, the problems have been solved, and the answer is yes. Fisher College is watching, and they apology, but they say that it's not necessary, that they know that you were doing your best, and that they all support you and want to see you grow and succeed. So I think that's pretty cool of you.
I had the option to come back. They asked me if I wanted to try again and come back, and I did. But I didn't like it.
Oh, well, never mind then.
Weirdly enough, I just didn't like the job, I guess. Also, I knew that I would have had to have put in 8 hours a day, like I was saying, without any sort of remuneration. So.
Yeah, that's a little brutal. I was gonna ask in the like esport, like in the college domain. You mentioned how like the college is able to like send you guys to lands when you guys play. You
Uh-huh.
guys are in a much more structured environment than like a lot of other like advanced rosters in our region that are going off of
Sure.
some org. And I was wondering, do you hope to do you hope that the org environment, like what colleges are doing, like what you had at Fisher College, should that be the standard, or is that always going to be a kind of one-off special thing where the college is paying for things? Like, do you see esports growing into having that kind of standard eventually? Hold up.
I guess the answer to that question is a little more complicated. The teams have to be worth that.
Right.
And for, Fisher College, us representing the school and going out there and consistently placing at LAN, at least, to a top, I think we were top 8 at Kansas City,
Believe you were.
I
Yeah.
think. It was like top 8 or top 12 or whatever, but getting our names out there on HLTV, they get to be seen on the streams, they get to promote the streams, they don't have to stream it themselves. That's always going to be much more worth it for them to show their program off and get tuition. So if you think about this, we go to, let's say, I think 3 lands when I was with the team, right? Maybe four, whatever. And the school spends, let's say, I don't know, maybe like $10,000 in total with flights, rooms, and food. Just again, these are all just hypothetical numbers. It's just spitballing. That, let's say $15,000 even. That pulls in just one player to our program for Counter-Strike or otherwise, and they've already made that money back. They've made that money back tenfold by the time that they're done with their time at the school, right? So that has to be worth it. It has to be worth it for orgs in NA, and the only teams that are doing things like that are your Blue Jays, your NRGs, your Nouns. Like these are cores at the very least that are going to be attending lands, making you some level of profit back, and then also delivering on a front to where you can continue to build your brand. And that's not something I think that is feasible in the near future for North America, given the state that it's in right now. But the teams that are at that point are getting that level of support. So,
Yeah.
we're getting a little bit better. I will say though, we're getting a little bit better. Talk about like your chicken coops. That's a team that isn't world beating or anything like
No, but
that, but their
they're
organization is
strong.
giving them the support that they need. But and their org is giving them the support that they need to
Yeah,
grow. Right?
exactly. Well, and I think what you were saying too about like I the way I phrased that question about what the esports division of Fisher makes it seem like that's a standard for esports division of colleges. No, that's the esports standard for Fisher because they continue to have rosters that make it worth for them to deliver that, right? So it really is all about having like as much as everybody in the scene that's not a player themselves but wants to grow the scene wants to support the players have to continue to be the foundation of everything and putting in the work and making a roster
Yeah.
worth it in the long run. Well, and then that leads me into another question. What I have started to see the like rise a little bit. Like we've started seeing better stuff in our region. Hopefully, we can get through this year without a major scandal. That would be wild. Um,
Doubt it.
doubt it, but one.
I'll do it myself if I have to.
Okay, you heard it here first.
I'll do it.
What is kind of the pressing issue in our region in your mind, and what's kind of the way to navigate through that? Do you think?
Two things, I guess, and I'm not speaking for the region as a whole. I think I'm just speaking for um, primarily the top level. Is that teams and players like, for example, your chicken coops and these other rosters around that same level? They're just the ones I'm most familiar with. They have a grind. They have a willingness, they have a reason and a purpose to playing the game, and they don't just hop on their computers and pug for 4 hours, go to practice, play 2 scrims, and then get off. That's the culture of North American Counter Strike, and it's systematic. It's from a bottom up level up until literally advanced for some teams at this point, and that's kind of saddening considering that advanced at one point in time felt like it had a little bit more prestige to it. Even the bottom level teams had names that you guys were always looking to see maybe grow or move on and whatnot, but now it's like this is a half joke because we're friends, right? But like when I pulled up HLT, I actually that's funny or not HLTV. When I pulled up Dust 2 and I saw that players like Fart and Bingus were making it into advanced. You know what I mean? It was like a half like realization moment that I was like, dude, like literally anybody it feels like can make it into advanced now. They can name themselves Fart with the intention, of being Fart forever, and they just make it there. But yeah,
I do kind of want to see
but
Fart on
we're
the world
friends.
stage just because of that name.
I'm friends with Fart with actually following that. So like he's really good, and that's not saying he's bad. I'm just saying in general, it felt like at one point in time there was a reason from players from an open IM main and advanced level to get on the game with a purpose, to get in the game and get into scrims and get into a team environment with the reason to actually improve or win, not in isolation, but with that team, with those players. That's why you make a team. You make a team full of players that you enjoy playing with, or if you can't enjoy playing with them, at least you win, and at least you're putting up results and playing well. I don't really need to be your best friend. I need to have a work environment at some point, right? That's what Counter Strike is in some instances, and what leads to some of these, interesting moments where it's like, wow, they must not like each other very much. It's well, no, they don't have to be best friends all the time. They can yell and scream and whatever, but at the end of the day, it's a business when you're trying to go pro. Um, and I guess what the point I was making was with like the looping back to chicken coop guys, what I respect is that knowing somebody like Frizzy, for example, he is somebody who goes into the game with so much purpose, more purpose than probably any other player in advanced, I would even say to a certain extent, except for maybe teams that got relegated from ECL and whatnot. Maybe even more purpose than a lot of players in ECL. And if there were 5 players who had the same kind of mentality, winning mentality, you know, they probably would be some of the most quote unquote toxic or frustrating teams to play in, but they'd also probably be one of the more successful. They'd probably have some of the more successful individuals long term, and they'd probably have one of the most meteoric rises that you'll see. And I think that we're kind of seeing that with some teams in the last couple of years in North America, where like four or five guys, maybe four, at a clip will play together for so long, and then it'll just be like boom, and they're at the next level, and you're like, where the hell did they come from, right? And I think we're kind of seeing that more and more now. But in layer to that, it's going to have to be, all right, what's the next step? And also, we have to remain professional if we want to be professional. If we want to be professionals, we have to, maintain a level head in server, out of server, on camera, off camera, and that nature of things too. So yeah. Sorry, that was really long
No,
winded, but
brother, we're here to listen to you yap, so make it as long-winded as possible.
ooh,
Um,
good lord.
yeah, I everything you say I agree with too. Is like, it's just seriously, there's a lot of culture issues. I also think that like North America has an issue where it feels like too many players are like, oh, we made it to Challenger League. That's it. Nice. Good job, everybody. We did it. And it's like that's the ceiling that we're reaching for sometimes. And I think I think over the last couple of years, there's been work to raise our floor. I know when I talked to the Comets at LAN, they were talking a lot about wanting to raise they were knew they had a high ceiling but wanted to raise their floor. And while I think North America is
Sure.
starting to do some of that work, I definitely think we could do more work to raise our ceiling. And I think that comes from, like you said, having a more winning mentality, having a better approach to when we're in and out of server, and just an overall more
Yeah.
professional attitude. Because yeah, five players don't have to be five best friends. They just have to have enough chemistry to plant the bomb on one of the sites or defend one of those sites, right? Like that.
I mean, also, like, not to, underplay North America, but like, we'd be lying if we were saying it's not like we like weren't talented enough to be able to play, at a high level at some point.
Exactly.
Like, we have so many players in our region to the point where at first it kind of felt like there was a quality control issue where our good teams weren't playing good enough. Where I think that that's definitely a part of it. It's also like there are just so many players now that are good to a certain degree in some capacity, whether it be mechanically, whether it be in terms of their decision making, whether it be in terms of their calling or communicating. There's just so much that we've elevated, but we don't have any super specialists anymore. It feels like, like we don't have anybody like I don't want to like go on a far extreme and say like donk, but like we don't have like I don't know who to even pick historically in North America. Like we have at the top level, I guess this is the best way of saying it. Like we have a NAF who is so stoic in the clutch and always known for playing late round situations really, really well and being put there on purpose, right? Now it's like, yeah, well, I could lurk. Yeah, I could lurk. I could entry. Yeah, I'll entry. I could op. And it doesn't really feel like there's, the perfect mixture of players anymore at, again, a lower level. It doesn't really feel like, not even that perfect is obviously unattainable, but like NRG and previously Nouns, like those were two teams that at a lower level, they're still at like the very highest level of North American regional Counter-Strike, but that was the closest we got to being like, yep, this guy is definitely going to entry. This guy is definitely going to off. This guy's definitely our caller. He's definitely our support. He's definitely our lurker. And now it's just like, I don't know, watching a demo of the same player from season to season, or whether it be from the team he was on last season into his new team, is like, wow, he's playing like practically entirely new roles. Um, and say what you will about Blue Jays, but if they think that the right decision was to get some role clarity and removing Wolfie, whether or not Dare is a long term option, I think that is a respectable, viewpoint that not really anybody on the outside can do anything other than to say, well, Wolfie was playing really well, right? And I don't know the intricacies of their relationship as friends and players and teammates and whatnot, but clearly it was another example of them not being best friends, but just working through for the sake of results. But would I have done it right before the major? No. But is it without reason? I would also say no. I think that they have their own reasons that they've made as abundantly clear as possible without, tanking the guy's status. But we're getting to that point as I look more and more on Twitter. But
Well, yeah, there's definitely Big D has had his own little Twitter drama earlier this year, so I decided social media was no good for me. But every time I poke my head back in there, yeah, it seems like not great things are unfolding with that bit of drama. But I've tried to avoid it. But I I think what you said is so interesting and leads me to one of my last questions here because I don't want to keep you all day. We'll bring
Sure.
Big Tony back on again someday because obviously you got quite a bit to say about
Oof.
Counter Strike. Role, yeah, like we don't have specialists. Like when you look, that's one of the things that I always struggle with when I'm as a caster casting for like a new advanced or ECL team is like there aren't other than like maybe the opper, there is no really clearly defined roles anymore. And I'm sure like with internal stuff, there's IGLing as well. Like opping and IGLing seem like the only two really clearly defined roles anymore. When you're
Sure.
what do you think teams need to do to start fleshing out the like let's take your time with Fisher. How did you guys flesh out your roles as a roster? Like, how did you guys figure
That's
that out?
interesting. Yeah, so it was hard. It was really hard because we didn't have the roles that we needed at the times that we were building our teams, to be honest with you. But with that, you have to make do. And as opposed to playing, I'll do this sometimes, you'll do this sometimes, you'll do this. What we had to do was we had to work with at like 3 months at a clip, the roles being as they were and shifting very little. And if we did shift, it wasn't going to be dramatic. It was going to be with intention. So we started with myself and Frizzy on the team, and things were pretty defined at that point. The only thing that was being juggled around even slightly was the AWP. That was starting with Frizzy, and then into Tatum's hands, and then let me fully remember. Yeah, started with Frizzy, went into Tatum's hands. Alex was our passive rifler IGL who would take a lot of lurk opportunity if given. I would play anchor roles on big sites and some small sites. And then opposite of me would be Tatum doing anchor roles as well if when he wasn't opping. And then when Frizzy wasn't opping, he was rifling with me on sites. And then it worked where Tommy Korn, the GOAT, 1-for-1 with me on literally every role. I was so happy to get Tommy on board finally. So he played our anchor roles. He was our anchor. Krepow, Milan replaced Frizzy. And at that point, again, the only thing that we were really concerned with being able to figure out is the op situation. So then Refuser took it, and then Tatum took it, and then uh, it was just that was just the one thing that, funny enough, in North America, I guess oppers is something that a lot of players are willing to do. Or at least they'll just be able to take on that responsibility and maybe eventually become oppers permanently. But yeah, I think that we having made that team work in so many different instances with so much lacking even still as far as role identity would go just kind of reinforces my thought on that because now they get Thor and dude, I'm so excited to see what they do. I'm so very excited to see what they do in the next like 3 months or so once he's in America full time because that's something that I feel like as far as North American teams would go, Fisher College is one that I'm so excited to see. And say what you will about them not actually being North American, they're 4 Europeans. I'm like, dude, we're all bleeding the same blood, man. Like excuses, excuses. Grow up, grow up. If we have conversations on Twitter about how Fisher are aggressively pursuing players and really using their funds to make themselves like an esports collegiate giant, that's a different story. I can see that side of an argument, but like I better not pull up on Twitter and see anything about teams or players getting upset that they're playing against Europeans in advanced or something like that, man, because just frankly, like we needed the practice. We needed the guys here to be able to, actually shoot and give us a reason to believe that that there is still a level of competition upcoming. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see what they do, man. It's gonna be a good time.
Fisher's a really exciting project and a really exciting team. I think that Fisher was the dark horse that a lot of the talent and production talked about at Frag Vegas, potentially being able to kind of make a big splash against some of these teams. Fisher always shows up at these lands and punches above their weight class. And frankly, I think that having those import players, it's I think it's better for the North American region to have EU imports to support our structure than it is for
Sure.
our players to go learn in EU and hope they bring that knowledge back, right? So
Yeah.
I think that these players being here, I mean, even looking at like a team like the Chill Guys that has a couple of import players as well, like those guys as well. Like these guys being in our ecosystem is going to strengthen our ecosystem. We should be hoping to learn from those players instead of
Unless they're hacking.
unless they're hacking. Uh,
That's what everybody's talking about right now. I have no clue. I just see it all over Twitter,
yeah,
but
there's a lot
that's
of
not
stuff.
for me to actually legitimately comment on.
Exactly. Well, Big D, I talked to the Chill Guys at LAN and met them and sorted things out. Big D got swept into some of that drama earlier this year, and uh,
I know, yeah.
yeah,
I'm familiar with Evan Call. I'm like I would say like not we're not like best buddies, but whenever we see each other, it's like, yo, what's up? And then it's like, yo, what's up? Kind of thing.
yeah, and I mean, I think that they showed up at LAN here, and I think they played a pretty good LAN tournament. They pushed Blue Jays pretty far on LAN to 3 maps, nearly
Yeah.
beat them. They played well, and I mean, uh, regardless, yeah, unless somebody is cheating, then it's bad. But I still think that having these imports that are either going to school here or living here, whatever the reason is, it does not matter. If they're existing within our
Oh, yeah, I agree.
ecosystem, let's learn from them and grow from them. So yeah, I'm thrilled with what Fisher College is doing, and I think they're very exciting to watch, and I'm curious to see where they go. All right, Tony. I got one last question here for you. I appreciate you so much joining me on this bad boy. And like I said, we'll be
Absolutely.
having repeat guests someday because there's only so many people in North American Counter Strike. But
And
that's
yeah.
like 7 months down the road. So don't worry about having to make time for me next week or anything. Anyway, uh, my last question I always ask everybody is this is a general question. This is your opportunity to get up on a soapbox and just preach for the people about whatever it is that you want. But if you could give any sort of general advice to your younger self or the younger generation, Counter Strike, esports, whatever related, let it rip.
It's a double-edged sword, I guess. Play the game to have fun. We need to start at a ground level, bringing more players in who actually enjoy playing this game. I'd say play the game and have fun. Find ways to have fun, and then compete, because you'll always be a better teammate and a better communicator and a better friend if you enjoy where you are, and you enjoy what you're doing. But if you don't want to be a competitor, don't compete. Play the game, have fun, be a positive enforcement to our ecosystem. At the lower level, we need more people who are actually genuine human beings who are nice playing this video game for the reason it was intended in the first place. Um, like silver to gold Nova level matchmaking where like people aren't just slurring at each other every 5 seconds and like I don't know. That's something we got to do away with because like I said, once you enjoy playing the game and once you're a better person, then you're just going to be a lot more enjoyable to have around, and people are going to want to have you around more as well. Um, and your chances at a career potentially become all that much better. But if you are a competitor, yeah, I also have to live by this rule a little bit more. Maybe even is just be be um be nice. That's really it, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. We're in an era of Counter Strike where I know obviously like hate watching is a big thing and stuff like that, but like dude, we already had enough hate. We had enough hate and we need more love, man. Just be a good person. That's really it. And that's not like targeted at any one specific person or anything like that. That's like a general rule of thumb as far as esports would go. We just need better people from the floor up, so that's really it. Have fun and be nice.
Heard that, dude. Well, I think that's brilliant. Yeah. It is fascinating how like every competitive esport, the further down in rank you go, the nastier people get. And you're like,
People are
what is
terrible, and
going
I'm
on
part of the
Oh
problem.
yeah, I mean we all have our moments. Like, come on. These are
I called the guy a moron last night in an MM
well,
game. I'm
well, I'm
terrible.
sure you could do much worse than that, Tony. So thanks for keeping it
Probably.
G rated at least. All right, dude. Well, thanks so much for joining me. And yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks, everybody at home, for watching, too. Okay. And